that have inhabited this land for centuries. Arizona State University's 4 campuses and ASU Care are located in the Salt River Valley on ancestral territories of indigenous peoples, including the Acamel A'atum and Peeposh Indian communities, whose care and keeping of these lands allow us to be here today. We acknowledge the sovereignty of these nations and seek to foster an environment of success and possibility for Native American patrons and communities.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight for the Amelia and Julian Saporiti of No No Boy in Concert. My name is Jada Ott, the co-organizers of the event, along with my colleague Megan Todd. Tonight's multimedia performance is the culminating event of the Interdesert Dialogue Series, which was supported by a seed grant from ASU's Humanities Institute. Over the past year, the Interdesert Dialogue Series brought together scholars, writers, land managers, artists, and musicians to foster respect for deserts and the people, plants, animals, and elements that make them up. We are deeply grateful to Jason Bruner, director of ASU's Desert Humanities Initiative, whose support and collaboration helped grow the 2023 series into a full artist residency this past week. He was instrumental in making tonight's performance possible, so we wish to thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you. And for those of you who, and I'm looking around, I see a number of new faces. So those of you who probably missed the Interdesert Dialogue last year, you missed a really, really wonderful series of conversations that were beautifully facilitated. So thank you.
Most of them are on YouTube.
Okay, so still available. As you might imagine, an event like this is by no means something that a single or even a small group of people can pull off together. So this was a collaborative effort and sort of cobbling together support from across ASU and to some extent beyond it. So support came from ASU's Public History program, the School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies, and thank you to Richard, the director of the school, for being here tonight. The Global Institute of Sustainability and Innovation, the Hugh Downs School of Human Communication, the Environmental Humanities Initiative, and the College of Integrative Arts and Sciences. And finally, we want to thank Kerr for hosting us in such a wonderful venue. This is my first time being here, and especially my first time attending a performance, and it's a beautiful space that really is ideal for thinking through the things that No No Boy will have us thinking through. So thank you to you all and to the Kerr Center.
And finally, and most importantly, perhaps, we'd like to thank Julian and Amelia Saporiti, who have shared so generously of themselves, their knowledge, their joy-making with us this week during the residency. And after Jada and I sharing their work with students for over the last 3 years or so, the class visits and coffee chats, creative field work, and sound and listening workshop this week have been such a gift. And we'd like to thank them both for their generosity and brilliance, and we are looking forward to tonight's performance. So with no further ado, please welcome Julian and Amelia Saporiti.
My wife Amelia likes an entrance, so she's going to wear this song. Can we bring the house lights down, please? Thank you. Good evening. How are you? Good, that's very important to me. My name's Julian. My wife will be out shortly. We're going to perform some songs for you tonight. This is an academic-y thing, so hopefully not too many of you will be tricked, but I do have to preface my normal concerts by saying tricked into witnessing a dissertation unfold in front of you, and then half the people leave and demand their money back. But this will be painless, I assure you. So my name's Julian. I'm from this magical land called Nashville, Tennessee originally. Are you from Nashville, or do you just like it? Memphis. Oh, at least you're in the right time zone. I kid, I love Memphis. So I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, so I come by this guitar playing honestly, I assure you. What we're doing tonight is, I was just a boy in a band for a long time, and then I kind of fell ass backwards into graduate school, and that was this 10-year journey, which I really loved because I learned how to read, which we don't do on tour that much. But I was coming across all these incredible histories. So when I lived in this place called Wyoming, another magical land, coming across all these fascinating histories, which are really important to me personally, because like I said, I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up this half Vietnamese kid in the 90s, and it was like a little odd, you know. I love it down there, I love it back home. But it was a real keep your head down kind of thing on certain occasions. The woke high schoolers had not inherited the earth yet, and so for all the obnoxiousness, like all the beauty and like understanding and diversity that generation brings was not available to me. So it was a real hold on to the white side, the Italian American side, and just kind of push my mom, who had come from a place called Vietnam, push all that stuff down. Just keep your head down, lest you get a tooth knocked out or something on the playground. Much different, I hope, than any of you with kids today. So it really wasn't until after my whole band thing, I'm like 26, 27, and I moved to Wyoming. I just read books and climb mountains. But along the way, in that book reading and that mountain climbing, I came across these really interesting sites, which I'll get into a little bit later in the state, in the set. Sites of like old ruins of Chinatowns that were razed to the ground, and old miners and railroad workers lived, and this Japanese internment camp that was up outside Yellowstone. I never learned about any of this stuff, and it was through history that I started to sort of reckon with my own identity, at least part of it. And that's made all the difference, as they say, folks. And tonight, just sort of sharing with you some historical songs, but some songs which sort of reckon with race and identity, and all these things I would lay out very seriously in the first paragraph or an abstract of a paper, but I will sing these things to you. And I want to start with a very personal song. As a teacher, when I'm not on the road and I have the occasion to teach, I made what you'll see tonight just as kind of a model for students to do anything but write a paper, basically. And you may like or dislike some of the performances tonight, but I hope you would at least grade them a B+ or better. And a lot of these songs, they start here, like I said. It's like through history and then back to the self and then back out again. And this first song is, I tell my students often when they want to know where to start, just talk to your auntie, because your auntie has some amazing story to tell that you've never bothered to ask. And that's what this song is about. Like I said, I'm Vietnamese American. That's a very complicated thing. Generationally, we're divided very politically. My mom's generation is very conservative, very pro-American, capitalist, that kind of thing. And if you study that history, you will understand why. I myself sympathize with the North, with the one family member we had who went off to fight for them. I kind of understand that. But I also understand my hyper-conservative Auntie Mai T, who lives outside D.C. This song's about being a Southerner twice over, kind of being cut in half multiple times. And it's called Tell Hanoi I Love Her, and that's how we'll start the evening. twice southern with civil wars. A fool to think that this place could ever be yours. The in-between, that's where we must explore. Tell Hanoi I love her. Jenny's mother in the nail salon. Bedazzled star-spangled t-shirt, Tiger Mom. Saw the flag on my hat, told me to take it off. Tell Hanoi I love her. I keep no grudge against some old world kin. No, 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 not letting go. Now that's a bodhisattva sin. I named my Chrysler after Ho Chi Minh. Tell Hanoi I love her. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. 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 La la la. I got that auntie, oh but man alive. Last election cast a ballot for 45. If I'd seen what she's seen, I might see her side. Tell Hanoi I love her. I dream of junk, so to sail away and wash your feet on a beach in Ha Long Bay. My mother said once that dragon's late. Tell Hanoi I love her. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. We bleed as cheap as our enemy, and we die just as needlessly. Once I thought there was just one of me. Tell Hanoi I love her. Fumble with numbers, I just wanna sing. Ain't nothing sadder than some gook with an American dream. Sometimes I think the most communist things. Tell Hanoi I love her. Tell Hanoi I love her. Tell Hanoi I love her. Thank you. I want to bring Amelia out.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Happy to be here.
How was the, that's where I'm from, by the way, just in case you didn't have a postcard. Yeah, so let's get into some history, what you all came for. So Amelia and I live in, man, we're lucky, another magical place called Portland, Oregon. We're just from Portland? Yeah? What part? Okay, Northerners.
We love St. John's.
Cross the bridge. They won't let us up there. We're Selwood people. So we live in this wonderful place called Portland, Oregon, and we moved there a week before the pandemic started. Did you have that here in Arizona? Not like we did. Really, we're just down here on some political tourism. We're going to go to Maricopa County and see what's up. So we were living in our 500 square foot apartment. We had this idea, we'll move to this hip part of town, and we'll just get a studio, you know, because the cafes will be our living room, that kind of bullshit. And then everything shuts down, and it shuts down super hard in Portland. We had to wear 5 masks at a time. And we also had to release an album. The first one we released with our record label, Smithsonian Folkways, the most historical of record labels, the Historians record label. So we had to make all these promotional videos, but we were stuck in this 500 square foot apartment. So we learned how to be film directors, and we stayed together, and now we're married, and I think that's why. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when we were in this little apartment, I had gone to grad school and stuff, and I had gotten really into studying history and digging through archives, and a lot of them are online now and stuff, so it's really great. So in real like magic school bus use your imagination fashion, I was doing all this research just to get out of the house. I was playing Zelda, and I was doing research, and that's how I would travel. And one of the stories we came across while we were stuck inside was we were trying to learn more about where we were living in Oregon and the Asian American history of that state. And there's a story about a tree, and the tree you see behind me. This is a Japanese cedar tree. This is in a place, a not so magical place called Gresham, Oregon. And this is the Gresham Pioneer Cemetery. This tree is incredibly important to the history of this state because, I'll tell you why in a second. Because it has grown very tall, but when it was first planted in the early part of the 20th century, it was to mark a grave of someone who, because of the whites-only law of the cemetery, wasn't allowed to have a gravestone, even though her husband was buried right next to her, Andrew McKinnon, with a headstone, a Scotsman. So Andrew's wife was a woman named Mio Iwakoshi. And Andrew had gone from Scotland to Australia in the 1800s. And then once the samurais kind of started to fade out in Japan, he went up there to teach him how to farm. And that's where he met Mio Iwakoshi just outside Nagasaki in the late 1800s. And in 1880, Andrew and Mio and their adopted daughter Tama, Mio was the first Japanese settler in Oregon. And she moves to this place, what would be called Gresham, and the town of Orient, named after her. She lives in a sawmill that they. And I love this story because I'm a very outdoorsy person. That's one of the reasons why I like living in Oregon so much. And a lot of times when we, I think, study the history, especially of Asian American folks, it's through West Coast kind of purview and a very urban purview, like Chinatowns and ethnic enclaves. But I love roaming around the forest outside Portland and thinking about this woman, Mio Iwakoshi, just sawing logs and getting down. And it really reorients, no pun intended, maybe our view of those woods and sort of colors the iconography of that space, which is very important to me. So Mio dies, and she's not allowed to be buried near Andrew until many years later. And so they plant this Japanese cedar tree, and it grows this tall. And so we visited the site and sat under it, played some music. This is sort of my historical method. Learn this history, go through the archives, go to the place, play some guitar, and see if a song comes out that can kind of share this history with people. So this is called The Western Empress of the Orient Sawmill. It's about our buddy Mio. First of the forest, steam-powered sawmill town. Patience and patience now. Samurai plowshare, old Nagasaki. The Scotsman makes funny sounds, turning the language round. Learning enough for asking her out. Rafts made of hardwood, wide as the river. Orient girls confound, like monarchs on frozen ground. Mio buried Andrew's body. Gresham pioneer. Tama and the Kyoto salesman married earlier last year. pose for a photo. Oh, how the years go, flanked by two grandsons proud, Jules and a modest gown. Long for the islands, welcome the workers, burnish a simple crown. Patience and patience now. Patience and patience now. Akuji lover, baby, let's go. Trail blazed in timbers down. 50 years before the X, Western Empress brought 'em underground. Neil said I crossed the goddamn ocean for you, fool, I ain't leaving now. Bury me, Japanese, cedar tree. Bury me, Japanese, cedar tree. Thanks so much. Anything on your mind, Amelia, you want to share with a room full of people?
Well, since I have your attention, I love this footage so much, and it's courtesy of the Suboy family. This is all of their home movies. They were a Japanese-American family, still are.
Some of them still are.
Some still exist. A Japanese-American family that came to Portland in like the 1920s, 1930s, and they have been making home movies ever since. So amazing footage on film that was preserved by the Oregon Historical Society, and they have generously let us use their footage for this beautiful educational purpose.
We're not making money?
Well, but I love looking at it because I'm a big like vintage lover, antique lover, Mad Men lover, but you just don't get to see Asian faces in those pictures and iconography too often, so it's pretty special.
Agreed. Anything else?
No, that's all. I'll let you know
Yeah.
if anything comes up.
Okay. The reason I continued grad school, I got a master's degree at Wyoming, and then there's just so few people out there, and the antelopes haven't learned to teach yet, that they'll let the master's students teach. God help those children. And I loved it. I loved it. They knew I was a songwriter who made a living, so like a professional songwriter. So I got to teach a songwriting class, but it was sort of a deal with the devil. They said, but you got to teach 2 of our honors program great books freshman courses. And I had gone to a music college, and I assure you, I had read none of the great books. They didn't seem that great to me. I'm kidding. But I had this lovely boss who, little inside baseball here, just said, stay a week ahead of the freshmen, you'll be fine. And it proved true, and I loved it. And I really dig Dante now, so it was all good. But I really love teaching. I thought that's what I would do for the rest of my life. I don't see any difference really from being on stage and communicating with an audience than getting in front of a class. And oftentimes I do rely on my guitar as a crutch. I think in the Oresteia, I explained the Greek chorus by singing She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah by the Beatles. But then someone told me, if you want to get paid anything, go get a PhD. I do not come from a particularly educated family. First person on my dad's side to ever have a degree, which is awesome. And my mom's side was more educated, but they also had their country blown up, so that's a whole thing we'll get into later. I'm trying to keep it light, but it's hard. So someone explained what a PhD was. I ended up at this another magical town, particularly because I met my wife there, called Providence, Rhode Island, and Dave too, another magical boy. Um, and so I studied ethnomusicology and American cultural studies, and that's where sort of turned all of this stuff, started turning these histories into songs. It was actually, there was a particular moment where this project happened. I'd been doing this research, like I said, since I lived in Wyoming. I was coming across all these interesting histories, but I was at the Society for Ethnomusicologists conference in Washington, D.C., like a week after the Trump election. And I was like super depressed because I'm a very liberal person. And I was like I remember walking in front of the White House like Charlie Brown on Christmas. And it was much more scary than that to me at the time. But I remember being at this conference, and it's lovely. I really dig the shit out of like niche ethnomusicology papers and presentations, much more than maybe a normal human should. But I like that stuff a lot. But I remember I was talking about whatever I was presenting on, and I was looking up at like out at the audience, and there was I think like 30 people. And if you're an academic, which I know a lot of you are, that was like sold out. I was like, we've made it. And I just remember thinking, man, when I used to use a guitar, I used to like have 100 people, sometimes way more, just listening to what I say, and now I actually have these stories. And shortly after that, I started turning all of these into songs, found an advisor who was this close to retirement, who would let me do this, and that's where we are. But this next song comes, it was written in Providence, Rhode Island. I had to teach one class there, which I just called No No Boy, by the way, which is named after a good book you should read. That's the story of the band name. It was basically just doing what I do, just getting the kids to study Asian American history, so it's pretty self-selecting, mostly immigrant kids and refugee kids like myself, coming in to learn about their families and about where they come from or where their parents come from. And a student gave me this next song. I remember it was like the beginning of the semester, and I was walking in, and these two Cambodian American gals, Madavin and Nicolina, were just talking, and Nicolina said, yeah, I was talking to Dad last night on the phone. I was speaking my best Khmerican, and I always keep like a good good words to put in songs notebook with me. And I was like, ooh, Khmerican. I like the consonants in that. And I said, hey, what does that mean? And then remember, I'm teaching an Asian American Studies course. I don't know what this means. And they look at me like I'm an idiot, and they're like, you know, like Khmer, Khmer, like that's our culture language. I was like, right. And like, it's our Spanglish. I said, okay, make a cool song title. And they said, you should write it. I said, okay. And the semester goes on. They corner me in the hallway. They had not forgotten this quip. They're both like 5 feet tall, maybe less, so it was kind of funny. They're like, have you written this song yet? And I said, no, but have you done your final projects yet? And they said, no. And so I said, you gotta give me something to write about. I'm not Cambodian. I come from a country that has a fraught history with Cambodia. Give me something to write about. What are you researching? And Nicolina gave me this incredible gift. She had excavated the archive of her father. All of these paintings. This guy who had been born in Cambodia had survived the American war in Southeast Asia, Vietnamese aggression and bombings, and had survived the killing fields and one of the worst genocides in the history of the world, the Khmer Rouge, and he had moved to Minneapolis. And she gave me all these paintings, and over, they were just not war, not these traumatic incidents, not people dying, but they were the symbol of his country that he couldn't really ever go back to. Angkor Wat, this temple system at sunrise and sunset. He painted this over and over and over, and this is what he shared with his daughter and the world. And he also contributed a 30-minute phone interview with Nicolina. And it was her asking these impossible questions, and him, like a good parent, I think, evading them completely. Why would he move all the way here to just burden his daughter with all these traumas of war and genocide that he had escaped? My mom is very similar. She's also a painter and paints Vietnam in very beautiful lights. So this really resonated with me, and I just sat looking at these paintings over and over and listening to this interview over and over and talking to Nicolina, and found a lot of kinship with her, coming from very different but similar circumstances. And I'm very grateful, and this next song is called Khmerica. nights I'm a tourist to my kind. Landscape caught within a frame, a glimpse of another side. Call you in my best American. Painter, pick up your round brush and fill the details in. Be my eye, be my eyes. Cracked paint, a place enchanted, the colors of your life. Sunsets playing on the temple, and you who survived. Be my eyes, be my eyes. Some kids move because their parents take new jobs. Some kids move 'cause of napalm. Cracked paint, a place enchanted, the colors, oh the colors of your life. See Emery bathed in gold and umber and palm trees climb so high. Sunsets playing on the temple, and you who survive. Be my eyes, Father, oh, be my eyes. Be my eyes, Father, oh, be my eyes. I can play that old music. We can dance to all the old songs, but I'll never walk with you through it. What a cruel, cruel task to belong. Yeah, you said the moon ain't sitting right when you wanted to marry Mom. Be my eyes, Father, oh, be my eyes. Be my eyes, Father, oh, be my eyes. Be my eyes, Father, oh, be my eyes. So as you can see, we put pictures, moving pictures behind us, sometimes still pictures, and this was so, when I started writing these songs, like when I realized I don't want to, I'm just like, fuck a job, let me just write songs instead of papers. I thought, well, I've been seeing all these incredible archival images as part of my research. And a lot of times these get relegated to, like figure 1-3 in a book. And you kind of just maybe skip over them, but I don't know, I felt like I would read through these archives, the typical boring stuff like tax documents and things like that, or lists of names, and write all that stuff down. And then, maybe I collect some oral histories of folks who are still living. And with all that information, it then really just, these pictures opened up when you have a person and a name to attach, right? So when I look back at that old pre-genocide, pre-Khmer Rouge footage, Nat Geo style footage from like the 40s, 50s of Cambodia, and I think about Nicolina's dad, and I think about other Cambodian folks, especially up in New England I met, who escaped that same thing, and I think about those dancers, and then I think about how a lot of the musicians and artists were just obliterated. just killed. It hit so hard, and and there was a way then to share those videos, and a much smarter person than me, this professor named Claire, who works in Michigan, she brought us in for residency once, and she said it's like you're choreographing the archive. I thought, oh, I should use that. That's fucking. But I love that, you know, and it made me dig so much harder. That's part of the reason why this method is so important to me as a teacher, because I didn't really read at all when I was a kid. There were too many records to listen to, too many movies to watch, too many other ways that to me were more exciting than, say, maybe Tolkien, of learning about the world. And so it wasn't really till grad school, honestly, as an adult, that I started reading, and I certainly have made up for it. But there's so many different ways to explore and share history and get kids interested in it, or people, kids of all ages. So this next one we're gonna do, we haven't played it in a while, so I guess that's a disclaimer if we fuck up.
It's got a lot of words.
We're up for it though, right?
Oh yeah.
This is one of my favorite songs from the second album called 1975. This song's called Give Me Chills. And this is, I was walking around Toronto a few years ago, and I saw this, and I was like going to a cafe that had CNN on, so not a cool cafe. But ISIS had taken over the bottom, like, third, like the big islands down in the south of the Philippines, and that was on the news. And a good friend of mine, who we'll get to in the next song, who was at Brown with me as a historian, he studies old Filipino history, the first Asians to come to the Americas, way back in the 1500s on these Spanish galleon ships. Fascinating stuff, but he goes there all the time to visit the archives, so I was like a little worried, you know. ISIS was like taking over, and these black flags were flying over Marawi and stuff, and it was like, it was wild, because, you know, all right, I just did it in my head, that's a 4-minute tangent, I'm not gonna go on. I basically went home and I started reworking this old love song that I had and had never recorded, that I liked the hook of, into this laundry list of just kind of Filipino history, and how it's so funny that, like, in Asian American studies, we learn a lot about the rich Asians, like the Chinese and the Japanese, the ones who like now make more money than white people and stuff. But a lot of the Southeast Asian folks, like that history is like kind of just not excavated enough. And the Philippines are central. That's where every Asian American studies course should start. Yeah, that same student, Madhavan, not Nicolina, the other one, who was much feistier. Madhavan, I played this in class because I used that class as like just test subjects, basically. She said, oh, great song. It's like a fucked up love letter to the Philippines. So let's sing it. Give me rhyme for no reason. Give me the world for a start. Give me all the treason you might carry in your heart. Give me life fantastic. Get me over the hill. Until the day I go, give me chill. Give me seas of blue waves tangled round my hand. Give me sand and soft shoes, evenings with the band. Sing me songs so classic, like cherry cola thrills. Lips on glass, not plastic, I know you will. Give me trial without jury. Give me Imelda Marcos' shoes. Give me another century to make it up to you. Hear of the Sangley Rebellion. Some say 20,000 killed. 16 and '03 give me chills. Give me Dewey in Manila, give me the Pearl of the Orient, give me the USS Olympia, 9 ships heaven sent. Skype me Christmas Eve from Doha, toast me New Year's from Crown Hill. And if we never get back home, give me chills. Give me rhyme for no reason, give me a Balik Bayon box, give me Coca-Cola, Chuck Taylors and an Apple Watch. Give me your Asian manhood, give me Duterte sober will, black flags in Marawi, give me chills. Thank you. Were you serving Coke or Pepsi outside? Coke? So my granddad on my dad's side, Carlo Saporiti, he was a machinist in Boston. Lovely guy. Oh my God, I miss my granddad. My grandma, not so much, I'll be honest with you, his wife, but my granddad. Yeah, Carlo, Charles, Grandchild is what we called him. And he was a machinist in Boston, in Dorchester, and then rough back then. So my dad always used to say when he was a kid, they used to watch the train station get lit on fire every Friday night. That's what they did for fun. And then they moved to Braintree, a little slicker, a little nicer. My granddad always wanted to be a baker, and then he developed a flour allergy. It's just all to say, life's not fair, folks. That's the theme of the evening. Where was this even going? Oh, my granddad was a machinist, and he used to use Coca-Cola to strip the rust off of his parts, so he would only let us drink Pepsi.
We hang out a lot.
You want to do Diego's song?
Sure, yeah, he's a nice guy.
So, the world used to look like this, at least in our minds, some people's minds. This is, where are you guys? You're on the coast. You've got some good real estate in this picture. So California is an island, and the Northwest Passage is cut off. This is a old map around in the time of the explorers, the conquistadors, and all that kind of nonsense. And this is where this next song takes place. It takes place on a ship going up the coast of California, and it gets into a storm and has to keep going. And that's the first people documented, any folks, non-native folks, to ever quote-unquote discover our new home state of Oregon. This happens all the way back in 1603, right? And it's very important to me because my buddy, the aforementioned Diego, the historian at Brown, now professor at Tufts University in Medford, Mass. Go Jumbos, I think. And he texted me from the archives, not in the Philippines, not in Manila this time, but from Sevilla in Spain, where all the colonial records are kept. And he said, I wish I had it to read, but it was something along the lines of, dude, Asian people discovered your state. I said, whoa. I think I said, that's fascinating, my friend. I didn't talk like that over text. And I said, tell me more, tell me more. So he sends one of those like texts that like is that long. And he just fills me in. He said, yes, 7 sailors of Asian descent from all over the continent are on this first ship to ever see where you live now. And this is monumental to me because Oregon is like, iconography-wise, is the whitest state. You know, by virtue of the Oregon Trail, Lewis and Clark Well, this is 200 plus years before that stuff, right? This predates that stuff, and if founding is important to people, not me so much, but I know it is to other people, this is a very important journey. And people knew about this journey, but they did not know about the diversity of folks on this ship. And it should have been assumed, because these ships from Spain would go back and forth between Manila and Acapulco a couple times a year, and they'd be crewed mostly by Asian sailors. And these were harrowing journeys. It was insane. 5 months to get across the sea, right? Just a month to get out of the Philippines, and then 3 months to the coast of California, and then down to Acapulco, which was just like hell on earth back then to navigate. And so I looked at the captain's log and read all 60 pages, translated into English, thank God. And it's just a fascinating journey. These folks, right, they've already come from the Philippines, and they start in Acapulco in May, and they go up the coast. This is like really interesting stuff, because it's like the first time, like the Santa Barbara in California is named on this journey. And it's a wild time, because on these ships, at least half the people are dying, and everyone's getting sick, because they didn't know about vitamin C. And so it's all this death, and it's wet all the time, and it's salty. And what's wild is if you go into it, they're Catholic as fuck. Like mass, constantly. These people who they're just pressing them into service from all over, enslaving all these Asian dudes. They're converting them, and they are like making them Catholic, giving them Spanish names. And it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's truly a different world in many ways. It really is how this map looks. It's just jagged and off. And they're, and I thought about this. And for me, as someone who has always like brushed wrong against religion so many times in my life, I've now kind of come around to this Buddhism thing you guys got to check out. But early in life, I was like, I was telling Jason earlier this week, I was like a 10-year-old atheist preaching the non-gospel to other 10-year-olds. It's a hideous sight in Nashville, Tennessee, I assure you. But the great thing about like thinking historically and using your imagination, I really like latched on to this one person Diego told me about, Anton Tomas. We don't know his original name, but he was all the way from Malabar, from India, right? And it just, if you just take the time to think about that journey, it's like this first steps of like globalization. The Portuguese are taking these folks over in servitude or in enslavement, dropping them off in a port like Macau or something. They find their way down to Manila, and then Anton Tomas gets picked up. He becomes a diver on the ship, so he's doing the gnarliest work. He does that 5-month journey through hell across the Pacific. Then he's on an even longer journey, and he's one of the first people to see the Oregon coast all the way from India in 1603. It's insane, and it's such an interesting way to think about the world. And I thought about, this is the fictional part, but it must have happened to some folks, the people who truly believed. And I thought about like the true believer on that ship, who was, even though he was enslaved and near death all the time, really latched onto this Christo guy that was being told to him every single day. And I thought about that, and I really believed it in the context of this song. And we went down to this beach, and I wrote out this whole song about it. It's called 1603, and yeah, it goes like this, and I hope some Oregon social studies teachers start teaching this story. Sailed as far from Malabar as any soul has known. Peaks of snow, a jagged coast, great giants made of stone. 2 months through the Visayas and 3 beyond the blue. At California's crest turned south, the mouth of hell we cruised only for you, only San Bernabe. Beneath the tent, the sacrament, the feast was held on Sunday. Indio, Indio, a gift of tiger skin. The Latin Mass, our foreign past, forgive us this, our sin, only for you. Only for you. Only for you.
Only for you.
Thomas turned back with the ill. Diego kept the cross. New Year's Day beyond Drake's Bay, the frigata was lost. But north we climbed, morale declined, not even 6 could stand. And through the storm from legend torn, the Strait of Anian, only for you. Only for you, Cristo, only for you, only for you. The floating ghost, the bouldered coast, too weakened to make land. The wind so rose, the lamp oil froze, we never touched the sand. But I believe, oh I believe, the Father and the Son claim this coast, oh Holy Ghost, who spoke through prophets' tongues, only for you. Only for you. It was only for you. Only for you. I feel brand new. Only for you. Should I keep talking?
Yeah.
Anything else?
No. Well, I think worth mentioning that the book that tells the story that our friend Diego wrote just came out, and it's called The First Asians in the Americas. So if you like that story and you want to know more, and you want to know some more stories like it, I feel like we, as good friends, should plug his book.
They're going to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Out via Harvard University Press. Not leaders in innovation. I got you guys. Been here all week. Just innovating. This would be a good time to sincerely thank everyone for bringing us out. Like Jason, Megan, and Jada said, as many people who contributed to having us come down, and it's been really awesome to work with students and just talk to faculty. I don't get a taste of the campus life often because we're on the road or I'm wandering the woods in Portland. And it's really nice because teaching truly is where my heart is. I love it, and to get to work with so many great students is awesome. And hopefully we're past the crest of this very depressing concert. Hopefully you enjoy yourselves and can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we're going to bring it up a little bit because like that last song, and like many of these songs, what songwriting has allowed me to do as a historian or an ethnographer, it's getting away from any kind of narrative. Sometimes there's narratives. I'm going to play one in a second. It's got like a billion verses, but most of the time I love music because of its ability to juxtapose. And the further I dig into any of these histories, like the Catholic Asians enslaved on the boats coming to America, dying on these Spanish ships looking for gold, or my own auntie, who I vehemently disagree with politically. It's all these complications that are interesting, and music in its juxtaposition of tone or lyric against the chord structures, or even just lyric against lyric in a line, I find so useful. And this next song does this. A lot of the recordings we do, this is more of the folk set, because it travels easier. But when I go out, like going out to where the footage you just saw is the place where you would have seen that boat, looking at Oregon for the first time, at that beach where Amelia and Diego and I went. And I bring my guitar and I write songs, because I don't know whether it's like you're into that ghost stuff kind of coming out, or if it's just activating the space. Might be a more academic way to say it. Something happens. But I also love bringing things back from those spaces, and in particular sounds, because I'm singing about these very distinct spaces, at least to me who studied them, and I go there, and then I'll knock on like an old barrack of a refugee camp or some barbed wire, or just capture the birds that are in the area. And this next song we're going to try to incorporate some of that. It's a lullaby. It's a lullaby I wrote walking through the woods in Portland, where myself and my mom and my brother all live now. So it's where we've settled as part of this Vietnamese diaspora, I suppose. And I was walking through the woods one day behind Amelia's law school, waiting to pick her up and drive her home. And I just had a portable synthesizer, a little sampler with me, like I often do on my hikes, and heard some beautiful bird sounds. And I recorded them and like pitched them down for any use, like a couple octaves, so I could play it like an instrument. And I had some other samples that I layered onto this song, old field recordings I had done the only time my mom's been back to Vietnam. Took her back in 2013, of just water. Water is very important. She grew up in the Mekong River Delta. And so all of these kind of nature sounds, along with this sort of broken recording of a translation of this lyric I wrote from an old Vietnamese American new wave pop singer from the 80s named Tai Hien. And so putting all of this together, and then also archival recordings of American military gunfire and shells being shot. And how do you blend all this? Because all of these things happened all at once, every day for my mom and this folks who I sing about. And so this is a love song to her, but trying to pastiche together all the complication through the sound. And I think it's a beautiful song, which look forward to sharing with you now.
Ngày xưa ta rất dại khờ
I was younger once. How your charm offensive tasted, and you were younger. All I own are second guesses, and so it goes. Fighting on the beach, and so it goes. Thank you very much. Big round of applause for Amelia, who's going to... Dog's been locked in the car this whole set, so she's going to figure it out. Just kidding, I'm kidding. I know people get nuts over that stuff. Just kidding. Joke about the Vietnam War, but dogs, no. So I want to take you back to a song. This is a very difficult song to play. It's a very joyful song, and it's a very instructional song. It was very difficult this particular time because a really good friend of mine gave me this song in a way. Her name was Joy Teraoka, and she was a singer, and she was a wonderful mother. Her daughter Denise is like an auntie to me, and Joy was really like my Japanese grandma. That's what she called herself. It's like Japanese grandma. Like I came to know her through doing history. It turns out if you talk to people, you meet some cool ones sometime, and Joy was one of those people. So I'll tell you how I met Joy, but I got to show you this photograph first. So this is a photograph I came across in a museum on, like I said, about 10 years ago. I was just this sort of like dirtbag rock climber guy who was also reading a lot of books at the University of Wyoming in Laramie. And every weekend I'd get out as fast as I could and just go to some tall mountain and climb it in that beautiful state, that beautiful part of the world. And one weekend I was taking a trip, and I went up outside Yellowstone, about an hour away, to this little place called Heart Mountain. And there's this tiny little museum called the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center, and it's in between the towns of Cody and Powell. Is anyone from Wyoming here? No, because you're not an antelope. And it's this little town between Cody and Powell that only existed for 3 years during World War II. So where 14,000 Japanese Americans, 2/3 of whom were American citizens, were locked up in a concentration camp. Not a death camp, mind you, like over in Europe, but a concentration definition. And this was called the Heart Mountain Relocation Center. Nice euphemism for the place. And the museum there does a pretty good job of showing just in black and white. It's like this kind of sad situation. Thousands of people locked up for no reason at all, really, except for some real wartime hysteria and racism that had been brewing first with the Chinese on the West Coast and then kind of coming to the forefront after Pearl Harbor. They've been just sent away from mostly Los Angeles, California, some farmer kids too in California, to this place in Wyoming, desolate Wyoming. And they built this makeshift town in a matter of months. They built it out of green lumber. So it all started splitting, and all the dust and the snow during these wicked winters would come in. You're talking families of 5 cramped into a room the size of where we're playing on stage right now. Straw, tick-filled mattresses, machine gun guard towers pointed in at all times, searchlights always going, barbed wire, real dehumanizing stuff. And remember, 2/3 of these people were Americans that they did this to. So I was struck by this because I'd never learned about this in Tennessee. I didn't learn much in Tennessee, to be honest with you. We learned about the Civil War every year, and I still don't know who won. So that was the extent of my history learning, to be totally honest. And to then hear about all of this dark history that happened, but then see this picture, it complicated it. Because I know these guys. I am one of these guys, some kind of slanty-eyed, black-haired dude who plays pop music. That was me. I went to a jazz college in Boston. I took 3 jazz history courses, but never came across a picture like this. 1942, behind barbed wire, a bunch of musicians playing swing music. And it changed the course of my life, because this is like the real starting point for this whole project. It was a story I really wanted to tell. And it's like, I gotta know who these folks are. Like, when you're told by the government, take only what you can carry in your hands, and we're gonna ship you off to a concentration camp. These idiots took trombones and trumpets and guitars. And I thought, these are guys I can relate to, because I know what a band practice is like. I don't know what history is like on the level of a politician or a general, but I do know what it's like on the history level of a dancer or a singer or a guitar player. But I don't know what it's like to be in their situation. So I went through the archives, I looked up all the songs that they played, the repertoire, I looked for any reviews in the camp paper that they had printed out, that the incarcerated had printed out themselves, and I learned this was a Georgie Gawa orchestra who formed in Pomona, California, which was an assembly kind of holding center when they were first rounded up and then shipped off to Wyoming. And I also found out there were 2 living band members. One was this world-class bullshitter named Yone Fukui. And this old-timer, one of my favorite types of people. This is the Sapariti men, long lineage of old-timer bullshitters. So I like these guys. And Yone was the trumpet player in this band. And I remember getting his number and calling him. And we spoke on the phone a bunch of times back and forth. He unfortunately passed away before I could ever meet him out in San Francisco. But he told me all these stories about smuggling whiskey back into camp when they would be called out. The band was so good, and also the only band in Wyoming, the only swing band in Wyoming, that they would be asked to go do like dances at proms at local high schools. And they would be asked to do like Elks Lodge dances. And then they'd like buy contraband whiskey. And every night, instead of like getting to celebrate their gig, they have to go back behind the bar. An incredible story. Fortunately, Yone passed away. But Joy Teraoka was a 15-year-old when this band formed. She was at Heart Mountain and she sang with this band. So that's how I got to know Joy. So we talked over email a bunch, over the phone, and then she just started emailing me, like when she saw storms coming through Providence, like real grandma shit. Did you know bad weather's coming? Yeah, like I was reading this on my phone after I checked the weather app. Yeah, I do, Joy. But it was like one of the highlights of certainly my academic career. I got to go to Hawaii where she lived in Honolulu in the old folks' home. She still performed for those folks every week, sang these old standards that she loved from camp and entertained her people. And I got to do a concert with her. And it was just one of the great highlights of my life. And I got to sing her this next song that I wrote for this band to try to tell more people this incredible story. For other people who don't relate to history through generals and soldiers, but idiot musicians. And yeah, I played it for Joy tonight because she unfortunately just passed away on December 23rd in Hawaii. She was getting way up there, so it's a blessing, folks, but it's still a difficult one to swallow over the Christmas holiday, and dedicated for her and her family. And it's called The Best Goddamn Band in Wyoming. Flyer red musicians needed, so young Yone grabbed his silver mouthpiece. Down a kid who brought a trumpet to Pomona, let Yone have it on a free 2-year lease. Joy Teraoka, ne Takeshita, went to the tryout, she was only 16, with some girlfriends to cheer her on. Their club was called the Rawdells. Mom said, if you keep up with school, Joy, you can sing. Georgie Gawa, Oji Nisei, he toured up the coast, he even played Japan. Before the war, they ripped up the Florida ballroom, and don't sleep on those Shotokians. Under starlight, they dance behind barbed wire. Under the mountain, it meant something to sing. Stuck between 2 countries in a fire, the best goddamn band in Wyoming. Little Ted's best show rep the Cardiacs gang. The clarinet kid, the Nisei Artie Shaw, stopped by rehearsal in a tar paper barrel. Once he joined up, sister, it was on. They practiced daily, gigged on the weekends, stirring up those dusty mess halls. Teenage bodies unchained from their parents. Man, those old folks, they really lost it all. The only swing band left in Wyoming that got them out nights until dawn. War-bond drives in Powell, Mormons dancing in Lovell. Bunch of Japs playing jazz at the Thermopolis prom. Under machine guns, they dance behind barbed wire. At below zero, kid, it means something to sing. Angelinos mixing up with farm kids in the choir. The best goddamn band in Wyoming. Georgie Gawa, he split for Chicago. With Kamiko in the fall of 44, he left the band. To Tets, Joy went with her family to DC. As for Yoni, he had to join the war. And that's a story from Old Hot Mountain, and the best band you never did see. Locked up in prison camps for no fucking reason, but they still found a reason to sing. The best goddamn band in Wyoming. 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 Thank you very much. Maybe that wasn't depressing enough, so we're going to carry on with a refugee ballad for you. Just fucking. Yeah, it's funny. I had an advisor, my music advisor at Brown, named Dana. Good guy, really good guy. And but he's real buttoned up. Real buttoned-up guy. He went to this school called Princeton. Not number one in innovation. And he looks like, if you were to draw a nerdy white guy who went to Princeton, you would have my beloved Dana. Huh? Huh? Yeah. Okay. And fashionable nerdy white guy. Absolutely. Princeton. Yeah. No, I love him. And I went in, and I remember I had gone home after that ethnomusicology conference where I had presented on that last story, the jazz band, right? And I had that sold out audience of 30 academics. And I was just thinking like, I gotta get more people to hear this story. So I went home and I wrote that song back in Nashville, last days in the old house with my mom, and she was cooking Vietnamese food, and I just wrote like 12 songs. Just putting on like oral histories I collected, and just like almost transcribing these words or old archives and stuff. That's where this next song will come from as well, that period. And I remember going back and to Brown, and I sat down in Dana's office, and I just played him 5 songs. And he looked at me like kind of like half smiling, half like, oh my God, like I got a dud, you know? You know, you advisors out there, when you get a, no, he's kidding. You're like, yeah, I know. And Dana's kind of looking at me crazy because he's real buttoned up, and I was like, I want to sing my dissertation. And he was, huh, okay. What does Bob, my other advisor in American Studies, in Asian American Studies, what does he think of this? I'm like, he thinks it's cool, it's his idea. And Dana's like, okay. But we got to make sure it's legible to the academy. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're songs. Everyone understands songs. It's our fucking books that no one knows how to read. And so it's been really nice seeing like the Spotify views for that song. It's like, maybe it is legible, you know. I don't know if Dana likes it, but you can ask him. So this next song came from that same very like just initial period of, man, I can turn these histories into songs. And one of the songs I wrote, this next song is called Boat People, and it refers to the million or so folks who had to leave Southeast Asia, Vietnam, after the fall of Saigon or the reunification of our country, depending which side you take. And then these little rickety fishing boats. Like, these are boats made for a crew of like 8 or 10. And these folks are piling in 100, 200 people, sometimes dying on top of each other and not being able to go anywhere. The reason they weren't able to go anywhere is because so often, like today, like the stuff I was seeing on the news at the time of folks leaving Syria in boats that looked exactly like this, there was nowhere to go. No one wanted them. And that was like so heartbreaking. My parents, or my mom, she got out early. She got out in '68 because of a mixture of connections we had, because we were French citizens, and also because she watched her grandfather get murdered in front of her during the Tet Offensive, in which the North came down and targeted people to assassinate. And my grandfather, great-grandfather, is one of those people. My mom was in the house when that happened. So luckily, she was able to get out, right? I say luckily. Imagine that twist in your life. Hopefully none of you can. Luckily, she was able to get out. She wasn't one of these people on one of these boats, but other family members were, and other family members had even during escape journeys overland through the jungles to get out of Vietnam. And it was just so heartbreaking. But when it came time to write a song about this, like, it's very poor songwriting to like use big numbers. It's like tough, right? The way we do history sometimes when we teach. It's like, you know, like 1 million people, something really not so chill happened to, you know, so you can't do it. You need an individual story. And so I was listening back to this thing I had nicked from the archives, a CBC recording, Canadian broadcast recording, in 1979 of a doctor, Dr. Tran. And his story was just so cinematic, and it deserves a movie, like that last song deserves a movie, but I'll have to settle for a song. And this is Boat People. And it's by far the emotional nadir of the night, so we'll bring it back up after this. 40 years ago, the doctor left on a boat. He never seen the snow or felt it in his hand. Sail until you see dry land. I can't get off the news, I can't get off my floor. The good folks go inside when we need you most. What do prayers do behind locked doors? Tuan went back to rebuild, only to watch Saigon fall. Now he climbs a Mont Royal, he makes a life in Montreal. Donated winter coats for Barbie dolls. I wrapped myself in books, they're talking about this band. I lingered on bell hooks, she helped me to understand that none of this is new. No man. 14 hours by car, cargo trucks and cabs, just to shake the cups. But Mom had to stay back. The Chinese safe house and covered tracks, 18 meters long, 200 bodies full, a simple compass and a map from a kid's geography book. Forget Ferdinand or Captain fucking Cook. Bodies bobbing in a rough South China Sea. Came across a Thai pirate ship scavenging. They ripped the doctor from his kids, bleeding. Then hours under guns, then tossed into the water. He swam back to his son, held tight to his daughter, drifting through the night. As the daylight broke, there was a mountain in the dawn off the Malaysian coast. Sweet Pulau Bidong, he never cried so hard or so long. I can't get off the news, I can't get off my phone. My mother came here too, and that was 50 years ago. So if you see somebody's cold, you give them a cold. So when I thought of being a scholar, I thought it was going to be like this. This is a trope in East Asian calligraphy called Scholar by Waterfall. And you'll see this from San Francisco Art Museum, Asian Art Museum. And that's what I imagine. I think like Wyoming ruined me. There was like no supervision. I was literally just climbing mountains and reading books on top of them. And I kid you not. And I thought, this will be my life. It's not as
some pros alongside the cons, perhaps.
But I've tried to get back to that. Amelia and I left Providence, and the first thing we did was split for a monastery. This place in upstate New York called Blue Cliff. Are you about to score this? I feel like you're about to,
No, I'm just getting in position.
getting ready.
Yeah.
So give me 5 minutes. This really cool monastery called Blue Cliff that this guy Thich Nhat Hanh started. And Thich Nhat Hanh was very important to me because he was the first Vietnamese person I ever read writings of. And he was this Buddhist monk who was in exile and then started these monasteries in France and the United States. And he had these, I really loved him because he had these tiny little books you could put in your pocket. And I would climb up these cliffs and then I would read these Buddhist books. And I was like a real thrift store Buddhist, like whatever was at the thrift store. And Thich Nhat Hanh was there a lot. So we kind of wanted to go deeper, so we spent a week with the monks. And that was really necessary because for any of you who have done something as intense as this doctorate thing, you get super deep. But also my thinking had never been more narrow-minded. Not just because like I'd spent all my time studying kind of this one area or whatever. I was just like, I don't know. I was like too critical, too analytical of everything all the time, always overthinking, and I wanted to empty out because I figured if I empty out, the good stuff will come back, and the other stuff might leave, and that might be nice. So we spent time with the monks, and it totally changed my perspective to the point where something like sending out job applications, being one of 300 people to try to get one fucking job in Kansas, didn't seem cool, and just started playing music full time again and hanging out in a place we love. And that's kind of what this song is about. It's about, I don't know, this really ratcheted up time we're living in. you know, where everyone's yelling all the time, constantly, and we're all outraged constantly. And for some privileged motherfucker like me, the question was like, do I have to be? Can I still care about things? But maybe I should care about things. In that great books course I told you about, I read this one really good book called Candide by this guy Voltaire, very hip guy. And he said, tend your garden. I kind of figured out what that meant. So I was back in Portland, and we were driving by this park called Laurelhurst Park. And during the pandemic, and continuing, homeless folks, you know, it's gotten kind of like, some might say, out of control. It's real bad. It's a real bad situation. And so some of the nicest places to stay are in parks. I myself have spent months of my life living out of cars, and parks were a great refuge. But what the cops would do is they would come and they would just sweep the entire encampment. So hundreds of people, all their earthly possessions. We watched this one morning, like 7 a.m. The cops just came and threw everything in a garbage truck. And, oh, it was so heartbreaking, you know. And politically, I was very against this because I'm a very good Portland liberal. And the next week, I went back to that same park. I was able to take a little jog on the sidewalk. No more tents. And I thought, it's pretty nice. I'll leave it at that. That's where the song comes from. So, it's the end of the world. Once again, what is it this week? Protest over this, riots over that.
Do you remember at the monastery when the outraged child cried and little monk just sweetly smiled back?
Oh, how and when do I get so zen? Light the way from your small apartment. Quiet days, worry within your reach. Tend your garden, do not harden at the cruel and constant spinning of your mind's demands. Pro tip for a good heart, be where your feet are now. So it's the end once again of the world. The sophomores bellyache and demonstrate over everything but class. Red suns and ash cover half the state of California. Little monk just meditates and slowly walks the path. I can't control what I can't control. Light the way from your small apartment. Quiet days, worry within your reach. Tend your garden, do not harden at the cruel and constant spinning of your mind's demands. Pro tip for a good heart, be where your feet are now. 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 So it's the end of the world, but I don't feel so anxious this week. Drawing canvas backs and sitting on the grass. Watch as they sweep the parks, trash the tents while it's still dark. Though once I lived out of a car, I wouldn't say I'm mad to have the sidewalk back. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of the evening. We have one more song, and to save us some trouble, we have two more songs. So instead of walking backstage for a second and you clapping loudly, just someone say encore after this next song, and we'll just play it and we can all go home. We can't thank you enough. It's been a real pleasure hanging out again with colleagues down here and working with students, and also just living that college life down in Tempe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting some like real dank bar food, you know, wondering what Bang Bang might be. And,
Looks exciting.
Looks really exciting. And maybe checking out the Taco Bell Cantina after the show.
I hear they have drinks.
Oh, thank you so much. I know it's a lot of heavy stuff. Imagine playing this 200 times. Every night's like a dissertation. It's great.
You did that to yourself.
I did. And I took you down with me.
Fair enough.
So, this is the other pole of this project. If that best goddamn band in Wyoming, those musicians, the musicians in this song are the other one. So I was in Paris. Would have bought you a drink afterwards. Paris is a meaningful city to me because it's sick, but also because that's where all of my family, except for my mom, went after the war. Like I said, French citizens, we all speak French, #colonialism, all that kind of stuff. I love it though. Again, lean into the complication. That's where the interesting songs are anyways. And so I was in Paris doing a completely different thing. I had gone to Brown to study street musicians. And I had it figured out, my friends, right? Full funding for 6 fucking years to go to Europe, play guitar on the street, and just like be a troubadour. Study, I don't know, policing in public space or some nonsense like that, whatever I was telling them. And that first summer I did it. Full funding to just go like sing in Milan, in Paris, in Berlin, just taking trains through the Alps and just singing my heart out. And then the Trump election happened. I wrote all these sad songs and everything got ruined. And here we are today. But on that first trip, I was in Paris and my mom said, make sure you look up this guy named Robert. Robert Viffien. Oh, great name. He's an old friend of mine. We went to high school together in Vietnam at Lycée de Marie Curie High School in Saigon. And I was like, I don't know, I got like awesome stuff to do, Mom. I don't know if I want to go hang out with your friend. And then she said the magic words, he owns a restaurant. Okay, all right, let's go. And so not thinking much of the establishments the brick and mortar establishments that hold Vietnamese restaurants, because again, coming from Nashville, Tennessee, I thought of them only in strip malls. It turned out that after I had shown up to Robert's restaurant in the 7th, if that means anything to you, very nice, I had dressed myself in a tank top, shorts, and flip-flops. My mother with me, and it turned out Robert owns the nicest Vietnamese restaurant in Paris. Like white tablecloths. Like I didn't even know that we knew about this, like collectively as a people. But there it was, a Vietnamese man serving champagne over a white tablecloth. But everything was forgiven because Robert loves art and music. You met him this summer, cool guy.
So cool.
Super
really,
cool.
really cool.
Très cool.
Oui.
This guy has like, we're sitting there having champagne, of course, because like why offer tea if you can offer champagne? And we're in his living room. I'd never been to his house before. And Amelia just looks up, she's like, God, that looks like a Basquiat painting. And then we were like, Robert.
You're like, no way, that could really be one though.
And then he tells this whole story about like, oh yeah, I bought it early, you know. And then he showed us the other one. And then the Keith Haring over his computer, like where he Skypes or Zooms, you know. What do you look at? What's on your bookshelf? And so another great story happened many years before this. Robert, we're talking over many courses. I'm there, I really want to learn about my mom, right? I'm kind of getting on this Asian American history kick and stuff, and I want to learn about, from someone who went to high school with her, what was it like growing up? I heard just faint stories, just echoes of like going to get pastries at a French cafe and then a bomb would kind of go off in town. Like, that's insane to me. Thank God I don't know anything like that in my life, but what was that like to navigate that as a kid? But Robert only wanted to talk about the band I was in because the reason him and my mom had connected in the first place because at the Paris Library he found a copy of my old indie rock band and he liked it and he saw my name and he was like, oh, that's Jacqueline's last name, my old classmate. And they got in touch the way that old people do through Facebook and friends, and it was super great. So by course 7, I was like, Robert, let's turn the tables. Tell me about your life, man. I want to know about your life. Stop asking me questions about playing music. And he says, well, something you might enjoy. I played in a band back in Vietnam. Man, the story he unfolded was amazing, but he's so fucking chill. Like, it was like he was just like reading the newspaper. He says, of course, a lot, like in French, like, bien sûr, bien sûr. Like after he says stuff, he's just super chill guy. And he was just like telling me the stories. Like, the Americans, of course, came over and the French before them. So we had rock and roll records and French yay music records, pop music. And the Americans came over and they needed bands. So all these teenagers in Saigon, they formed bands. And me and my friends, we formed bands. I was a bass player and I was the only one who could really understand English. So I'd phonetically transcribe Rolling Stones lyrics. Lord knows how he transcribed them. That'd be interesting. And they had all this money, so they would buy us instruments. And he just said it very nonchalant, like, he'd buy us like whatever, Fender amps or Vox amps and drum sets and basses and stuff. It was very cool. And we'd play these gigs where we'd load everything into the helicopter as if that's a normal way to get to a gig. And we'd load up the drums and the guitars and amps, and there'd just be piles of drugs and a couple prostitutes, and then us teenagers would get in there, and we'd fly over the jungle, of course, as if that's a place you go to play a gig. And the Viet Cong would be shooting at us, right, of course, and then we'd land in this clandestine jungle base, of course, and then we'd play Jimi Hendrix while the world was on fucking fire around us, and that was a story. I said, dude, that deserves a song. It's called The Imperial Twist. Last song.
I was, pro-communist and extremely pro-American because I really loved the rock and roll.
Can you give the world a twist? Just by doing the twist. At the moment the bomb went off, they were playing Purple Haze. I met Robert at his restaurant, 7e arrondissement. The doors still echo in the jungle. He said your mother brought back 45s from Paris in 65, and we learned them note for note. Some broken English Rolling Stones, Fenders, girls and dope. America provides. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. Can you give the world a twist? Just by doing the twist. Can you save the world with acid rock? I didn't know my mother's maiden name. That time in when we was detained. Look, I've been back to old Saigon, but how much of you is lost when they change your name? Oh, oh, Saigon teen. Oh, oh, Saigon teen. Oh, 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 Saigon teen. Oh, oh, Saigon teen. Man, it was half a world away. The band got back on stage for decades to the day. Purple haze. Thank you. It means a lot. Before we go, we'll hang around and pack up if anyone has any particular questions. We used to do a whole formal Q&A, but now I like we'll just call it office hours afterwards. But I think, at least for me, I don't speak for Amelia, I'm really grateful you had us here.
And I'm really grateful you had us here too.
Well done. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's the only other gig I've ever done in Phoenix was on the very first tour my band ever booked when I was 19. We're coming from Boston. We did this, so it's pre-iPhone, right? So we didn't really know how to map stuff. We did like Boston to Indiana, Indiana to Denver, Denver to the San Juan Islands outside Seattle, down to LA, and then we had routed LA to Austin with a gig in Phoenix, thinking that would just be a place we could crash for the night. We only stopped to play the gig, and we opened for an improv comedy troupe at a cafe. I don't even know where it is. It's the only other time I've played in Phoenix. This is a much better experience, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no bridges to the past. Don't fool yourself as you look back. The time is up, those years are gone. We have for now, but not for long. Pass it on, then pass it by. Kiss me goodnight. 3 stripes on a yellow cloth, a fake tattoo you won't wash off. You are more than what we've lost. Kiss me goodnight. I met Chibi in the temple out in San Francisco. She put my mind to ease. Sit here from my privileged throne, painting scars and tossing bones, just making puppets of your dead. A fetish for my bookish head. What part of history might I take? Only the part which you might make. Kiss me goodnight. Ooh, kiss me good night. Thank you very much. House lights up, music on. Have a great night. Thank you.